minute.
I'm Kate. I'm an English teacher here on Verbling, and today's class is about mixed conditionals. So we'll be talking about all of the different zero, first, second, and third. We'll be practicing when we use the different conditionals in different situations, and we'll hopefully have some time to do speaking practice as well. Okay. So it's good to have some of you back. So let's see. Ali and Eva were with me last hour, so we're talking about the first and second conditionals. So welcome back.
Yes. Hi
again. And hello to Anna.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Okay, so I think we're still waiting for a few students to arrive. So why don't the three of you tell me, have you studied the conditionals before? Do you find them difficult? And if so, what's difficult about them? Just tell me a little bit about your background with the conditionals in English.
Can I? Or
Go ahead.
okay, so the conditional tree is very hard for me, and when I use in a real situation, I just thinking about the correct grammar, and I can't use it because I just thinking, and this is the problem, I think. So I understand the grammar, but I can't use it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, right? So you understand it and you can do the exercises, but then in the moment you find you're thinking too much about the grammar.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Other comments. So welcome back, Matt. My question for everyone here so far was, what's your experience studying the conditionals, and what do you think is difficult about them?
For me, it depends from sentences.
It depends on the sentence.
I know the systems, okay, grammar, but for me, it depends the sentence. For example, if the sentence is it's a long, tricky, and for me it's tricky. I know what I say the answer.
Okay, yeah. So
I need most time.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's sort of similar to what Eva said, right? You have to think a lot, especially with the third conditional, about these complicated grammar structures and how to use them.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So I think we're still waiting for some more people. I'm not sure, but let me give you an idea of what we'll be doing in class today. So we'll go over the grammar behind the zero, first, second, and third conditionals. So I won't spend that much time on all of them, right? It's sort of a review because I think most of you, if not all of you, have studied these structures before, especially if you were with me in the last class. And then what we'll hopefully have most of the class to focus on is practicing when we use each one. So we'll do some exercises where you have to fill in the blank in a sentence with the correct verb according to whether you think it should be in first, second, or third conditional, right? So depending on the context. And then at the end, we'll practice speaking, and we'll focus, I think, a lot of our speaking activity on the third conditional, right? Because I know that one is the trickiest for most English learners. Okay. So any questions before we get started? Okay. So if we have more students joining us, that's okay. Let's see. Matt, Eva, and Ali, since you are all in my last class, why don't you, can one of you sort of introduce conditionals? Can you tell the class what a conditional sentence is?
Yes, conditional sentence is there is a two clause, and one is if clause and one is main clause. And the main clause is depend if clause.
Good. The main clause depends on the if clause. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good, Ali. Great. And so, so in our last class, we talked about the first and second conditionals.
Yes.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Eva, do you have a comment?
I just okay. So.
Oh, just an agreement. Okay. No problem. Okay, good. So, so we talked about the first and second conditionals, but today we're actually going to start with the zero conditional. So, so the zero conditional is not extremely common, but it exists. So I want to review it. And welcome, Anatoly.
Hello, thank you.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Okay, so all right. So has anyone learned the zero conditional before?
No.
No.
Yes.
There's
Okay.
also zero conditional.
There's also a zero conditional. Okay, so
Yeah, I think it's about fact.
good.
Yeah.
Excellent, Ali. Yeah.
Yeah. For example, if you heat ice, it melts. Something
Good.
like that.
Perfect.
Ah.
Okay, so that was a great example. So that's the zero conditional, right? If you heat ice, it melts. Okay, so so looking at this sentence, you know, just remember we have two clauses. We have the if clause and the main clause. And basically, the way conditional sentences work is for each type of conditionals, for the zero, first, second, and third, there's a certain verb tense that goes with the if clause and a certain verb tense that goes with the main clause. So it's sort of a lot of rules, and as Eva was saying, a lot of things to remember when it actually comes time to use these sentences in speaking. So in the zero conditional, in the if clause, so if you heat ice, what verb tense are we using?
Present simple.
Mm-hmm. And what about in the main clause?
Also
Same.
present simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, as Ali said, this is something that's used for facts, right? So for expressing a general truth, like a scientific fact, we'll use the zero conditional. So for things that are always true, right? One other way we can use this is with an imperative in the main clause. So for instance, if you have a headache, stop watching TV. Right? If you have a headache, stop watching TV. So there we have the imperative in the main clause. Okay, I'm giving an order. All right, questions? Okay, so so now we're going to talk about the first conditional. We'll review it, and since we have the luxury of having several students in our class who just learned about the first conditional, Can I ask one of the three of you to teach the rest of the class about the first conditional? To explain the first conditional.
I try it.
Okay.
So if you want to say something real, possibility in the future or in the present, you can use the conditional one.
Mm-hmm.
The if clause, it's a simple present, and the main clause, it's a simple future. For example, if it rains, I will take an umbrella.
Excellent.
So it's a possible condition.
Perfect. So Ava just gave a great explanation, right? So it's the structure of the first conditional. In the if clause, right, we're using the present simple. And in the main clause, we're using the simple future. So will plus the infinitive. So she said, if it rains, I will take an umbrella. Okay. So if we imagine this scenario, if it rains, I will take an umbrella. What is the function of if it rains? What is that doing in the sentence? What is it expressing? Is it expressing certainty or possibility?
No,
Possibility.
Possibility, right? So this is a condition. So if it rains, so the first part is expressing a possible condition. That's the if clause. And then in the main clause, we have a probable result. So I'm telling you the result of that, of what will happen if the first thing happens. Okay? Questions? Okay. With the first conditional, are we talking about the past, present, future?
Present.
Present and future.
Good. Present and future. And are we talking about real or hypothetical situations?
Real
Real.
Good. Real or possible situations. Great.
or possible.
Excellent. Okay. Now, questions about that? Okay. And Anatoly, stop me if you have questions, because these three, your classmates were in my last class, so we just reviewed the first and second conditional.
Okay.
So I'm going a bit quickly, I know. Okay, so stop me with questions.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so Matt, Eva, Ali, can one of you explain the second conditional? What you remember about the second conditional and when we use it?
The second, in the situation, the past and the present.
In the second conditional, so the structure.
The structure is for example, if I had money, I would buy a new home.
Great. Okay, so the structure is if in the if clause, we're using the past simple. So Matt gave a great example. If I had money, I would buy a new home.
Yes.
So here we have the verb had, which is the past tense, and that's in the if clause. And in the main clause, where we have would buy is the verb, and so we call this the conditional tense, and it's basically would plus the infinitive to buy, but without to. So it's just buy. So I would buy a new home. Okay, and so, but here are we talking, so we're using the past tense, right, in the if clause, but are we talking about the past?
No.
No.
We're talking
No.
about present.
Present
Right.
or future also.
But impossible situation or hypothetical.
Good, excellent. So the difference, yeah. Go ahead, Eva.
I just said that's unreal.
Yeah.
situation.
Okay, so some different ways of describing it: impossible, hypothetical, unlikely, unreal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the main difference, right? When we're talking about the first and second conditional, right? They're both used for the present and future, but one is for real or possible situations, and the other is for impossible or hypothetical situations, right? That's the main difference. Okay, so let's look at an example of when we would use the first versus second conditional. So hold on, give me a second to type. Okay, so imagine you have this sentence with two missing verbs. Okay, if he, his exams. Okay, and you have to fill in the appropriate tense, excuse me, in each blank. Imagine first that we're talking about a very good student, right? A student who usually works hard, gets good marks, right? He's has always been a good student. How would you fill in this conditional sentence? Would you use the first or second conditional?
Second.
The second for a good student?
Sorry, first.
The first, yeah. So what would the sentence be?
If he study, he will pass his exams.
Good. So if he studies, he will pass his exams, right? Okay, perfect. So as Ali said, this is the first conditional, right? Because is it possible that that this student will pass his exams?
Yes.
Is it likely even?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's likely, right? It's probable. So we're saying this is a possible condition if he studies, and a probable result.
Because the students study.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good. Okay, now what if we're talking about a bad student, right? A student who usually does not study, he never goes to class, he doesn't care about earning good marks. How could, yeah?
This will the second conditional. If he studied, he would pass his exam.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so if he studied, he would pass his exams, right? Okay, and so notice here that Eva used the simple past, studied, and the conditional tense, would pass. Now, in this sentence, do we think that it's likely that the student will study?
No.
No. Okay, so he's probably not going to study. We doubt that he will study. So the difference between these two sentences really reflects or emphasizes the attitude of the speaker, right? So what we think of the student is reflected in our choice of either the first or the second conditional. Questions about this? Okay. All right, so now the moment you've all been waiting for, we'll move on to the third conditional, okay, which is the hard one. So here I'm going to look at the I'm going to share my screen with you so we can look at so you'll have a cleaner visual of the grammar behind this. So let's see. Give me a second, and welcome there.
Yes, hi. How are you?
Hi. Doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you again.
You too. Just in time for a third conditional.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So here we're looking at the third conditional. This is an example of the third conditional. We'll start with this. So can someone read this slide, please?
Okay. Jack wanted to buy a house last year, but he couldn't do that because he didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
Continue or?
Continue. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If I had a lot of money, I would have bought a big house.
Okay, great. So here we're talking about a situation in the past. Is this different from the second conditional?
Yes.
Yes, right? In all of the previous conditionals, in 0, first, and second conditional, we were talking about the present or future. But here, we are talking about the past, right? So this is an unreal situation in the past. Okay, so did Jack have a lot of money last year?
No.
Did he have a lot of money? No. Did he buy a house?
No.
No.
No, right? So we're imagining a completely unreal situation. Okay, now for the difficult part. Let's look at the structure. In the if clause, we're using the past perfect. So I know this looks bizarre, right? Had. It looks a little bit strange to repeat had, but it's very common.
Guys, I don't hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, no.
I heard.
Okay, sorry about that. So the past perfect is had plus the participle. So had is one example, or if I had known, right? This is the past perfect. And in the main clause, we're using the past conditional, right? So again, we have would, and then we have, not had, have in the present, and then the participle. So would have bought, would have phoned. So that's the structure. Okay, let's look at another example. So can someone read this page, please?
Yesterday, Susan wanted to phone Paul, but she couldn't do that because she didn't know his number. If I had known his number, I would have phoned him.
Okay, so again, we looked at, in our last class, we looked at a similar scenario with the second conditional, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to point out this difference. So in the second conditional, we have a similar situation with the same pictures even, right? And here, Susan wants, present, to phone Paul, but she can't do this because she doesn't know his number, right? Is this in the present, future, past?
It's present.
Yeah, it's in the present, right? She's thinking about the present or future. And so we're using the second conditional. If I knew his phone number, I would phone him. Now compare that to the sentence we just saw in the third conditional, right? Here we have this key word, yesterday, right? Yesterday. And what does yesterday suggest? What's important about yesterday?
Past.
It's the past, right? So now we know we're talking about the past. So since we're talking about the past, right, yesterday she wanted to do this, but she didn't, we're using the third conditional, right? We're imagining an alternate situation in the past. Okay? So questions about that?
No.
No. Okay, I'll come back. Okay, so I think, again, so So let's just review in the verbling box the third conditional. So first, the structure. What is it? Structure of the third conditional.
Who you are asking, teacher?
So anyone in the class.
Okay, had plus past participle.
Okay,
Right?
so if plus the or the past perfect, right? So had plus, as you said, had plus the participle. And then in the main clause?
Would plus have, but past participle also.
Perfect. Typing. Okay, right, so if plus past perfect in the if clause, and then in the main clause, subject again, would have participle. Okay, so it's a lot to remember, right? And so before we were talking about the present and future. With the third conditional, what time period are we talking about?
Past.
Past tense, good. And are we talking about real situations, hypothetical situations?
Maybe real, maybe mix between real and hypothetical, maybe.
It's actually even more extreme, right? So if first conditional is over here, it's real. Then we have second conditional. That's a little bit more hypothetical. Third conditional is way over here, right? It's unreal. Unreal or imaginary situations in the past. So we're imagining an alternative version of the past. And it's unreal because it's past. It didn't happen, right? Okay. Any questions?
No.
Okay. So let's look at some exercises together on the first, second, and third conditional. So this is sort of a mixed review of these tenses. Okay. And I think I'll give you some. So essentially, the goal of these exercises, they're sort of fill in the blank exercises and things like that. The goal is to decide first which conditional should I be using, right? So read the sentence and try to establish, do I need to use 0, first, second, or third conditional? And second, the second challenge is to appropriately conjugate the verb in the right tense, right? So it's a lot to think about, and hopefully some practice will be helpful. Okay, so let's look at these exercises. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen with you again. Okay, so okay, sorry, give me a second. Screen share. Okay. All right, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So so in the first exercise, we're just looking at the difference between first and second conditionals, right? So here it's a little bit easier, quote unquote, because we don't have to worry about third conditional yet. So so can someone read this example sentence? Oh, sorry, can someone read the direction and the example sentence?
Okay, put the verbs in the spaces. Are they first or second conditionals? Example, if I didn't eat any food for a month, I would be very hungry.
Okay, great. So essentially, yeah, second conditional. So essentially, you have missing verbs, right? And you need to fill in the appropriate verb and then decide, is it first or second conditional? So I want you to, on your own, by yourself, work on number 1 to 7. Okay, I want you to do these, to fill in these sentences by yourself. You know, just write it down somewhere, either on paper or on your computer. I'll give you, 3 or 4 minutes to do this activity. So you need to fill in the spaces and tell me and write and decide if it's first or second conditional. Okay, and then we will review it together. So work on this now.
If I got home too late tonight?
Okay, but do it by yourself first. So just quietly by yourself, and then we will talk about them together.
Ah, okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so take just another minute and to complete this, and then we'll review. It's okay if you're not finished. All right, so let's start to go over this. So for each one, I would like you to read the sentence and fill in the spaces, and then tell me which conditional it is and why. Okay, so can someone try number 1?
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
If I got home too late tonight, I will not eat.
Okay, so what conditional is this?
Second, maybe.
Okay, and why is this in the second conditional?
Because we have tonight, so I thought it is maybe in past simple.
Okay.
Because past simple, I don't know.
Okay, so if I put this in second conditional, is this something that is unlikely or likely to happen?
I think it's first conditional. If I get home too late tonight, I will eat. I will not eat.
Okay, so I will not or I won't eat. Okay, and so that would be first conditional. So Ali thinks it's first conditional.
Yeah.
Other opinions?
I think it is more suitable for the first conditional.
Okay.
I think so. It's a real situation, so it's first conditional.
It's a real situation. Okay.
Real.
I think, you know, either. So Ali said, so, but yeah, the important distinction is, you know, it wouldn't, I think it's probably more of a likely situation, right? It's kind of a real possible situation. I'm imagining I have to work late, right? And, you know, maybe then I'll get home very late and I will just go straight to sleep. It's something that is possible or likely to happen. So in that case, yes, we would use Ali's answer. If I get home too late tonight, I won't eat. Oops, I forgot the verb. I won't eat. And that's the first conditional. But imagine, can anyone imagine a scenario, a situation where we would
When we are regretting about if I got home tonight, I wouldn't eat.
Good, yeah. So that's what the sentence would be like in the second conditional, and what would that mean? What is this man's job probably like if he's expressing this idea in the second conditional?
Maybe he cares about his health because it is not so good to eat late. And
Okay, so do you think, so if we use the second conditional here and say, if I got home too late tonight, I wouldn't eat. Do you think he often works late? Or does he often go home at a reasonable... Ali, go ahead.
maybe
he is at home already, and he ate something, and he say, if I got home too late tonight.
That would be the third conditional, if I had gotten home too late tonight, right? Because then we'd be talking about the past.
Yeah, but I think he used to get home early, but tonight it is maybe he thinking too late.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that would be the first conditional. In the second conditional, the situation is basically, you know, we're still talking about the present or future. So imagine this is a man who is at work, but never in his life has he had to stay late, right? He leaves work every day at 4 p.m., so he gets home early, and he has dinner early, right? So he never, ever, ever has to work late. In that case, he would probably express this sentence using the second conditional, right? If I got home too late tonight, I wouldn't eat. And that just means, that would just mean that he thinks it's very, very, very unlikely that he would get home late. Is that clear? How the two conditionals would make this very different sentences?
if his boss asked him to stay on the job, he would regret about it. Other way.
Yeah.
To use in second
Okay.
condition.
Yeah. Good. Great. Okay. It would be very abnormal. It would not be common. Okay. So let's move on to number 2.
If they earned enough money, they would go to France for their holiday this summer.
Okay. Which conditional is this?
I think so. It's an interesting situation because it's a real option, but it cannot happen because they earned not enough money. So I think so. It's a second conditional because it's it will be not a real situation because it can't happen.
Okay, so you're imagining that these people in reality don't make that much money. So this would be a hypothetical or unreal situation for them.
Yes, because this summer, so in this year, maybe I can't earn more money.
Okay. What if I tell you that they are investment bankers who make $500 million a year, usually?
Then we can use the first
Okay.
also.
Okay, good. And what would that be?
So if they earn enough money, they goes, not goes, just they go.
They will go?
They will go to
Good.
France. Okay.
Okay, so good. So this is, so I just wanted to point this out, right? I think depending on who we're talking about, we would use the first or second conditional, right? If we're talking about millionaires,
Yes.
you know, this is very likely. If we're talking about college students who work at a coffee shop, maybe we'll use the second conditional, right?
Teacher,
Yeah.
question. So we have to know who we talking about in this situation.
Yeah,
it could
But
be
when you use
first
it,
condition.
you talk.
Sorry. Okay. So say sorry. First, Ali, what's your question first?
Okay.
You have to know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could use the first condition and the second condition every sentences maybe.
Not all of them, but some of them. It depends on the situation, right? There are some times when we know we have to use the second conditional, but for a lot of times we can use both, and that's why I asked you to tell me why you think it's first or second, right? Because it depends on how you are imagining this situation, right? Maybe Eva was imagining people who have a very low salary in sentence number 2, and I was imagining you know, upper middle class people who could do this, who could travel, right?
Yeah.
So it totally depends. In context, usually you will know who we're talking about, right?
And maybe when you talk about yourself, if you are a broker, you have to choose the first option, so the conditional one, because you can earn more money till your summer holiday. But if you are a student, you just use the second conditional, because you can't earn more money in just some weeks or some months.
Perfect. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, so let's move on to number 3.
This sentence is a first conditional. And if John can run 100 meters in 10 seconds, he will be an athlete.
Okay, that's very fast.
Yeah. It also depends, I think. If John is maybe 100 kilo, a fat person, it's impossible, I think.
Okay, so let's say this is the sentence. If my grandfather John
Okay, can run.
So what? So now, what conditional should we use?
First.
Mm-mm.
No?
Second.
2.
Second, unless you have an extremely healthy and active grandfather, probably you're going to use the second conditional here, right? Because this is unlikely that someone who is 80 or 90 can run this quickly, right? Okay, so what would this be in the second conditional?
Second.
Could run.
Good, Ali.
Could run.
If my grandfather John could run, here, could is like the past of can, right? He
would be.
Excellent. He would be an athlete. Right, so this is, again, an unlikely or hypothetical situation.
It's
Okay.
a kind of you talking about your grandfather, you say something, but you also even you don't believe yourself, something like that.
Right. Good. Okay. All right. So good. Okay. So let's look at number 4.
It depends, Simon again, I think.
Simon?
It depends, Simon. If Simon catches a fish today, we will eat it.
Mm-hmm. Good.
First condition.
Cats.
So if he catches a fish
First.
today, we will eat it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ali, you said it depends. What does it depend on?
I don't know. Maybe Simon never went to do fishing and don't know how to fish.
Yeah.
You can use second condition, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So right. So great. Basically, if we knew that Simon, has never been fishing, he doesn't really care about it, we might use the second conditional because we think it's unlikely that he would catch a fish. But with the first conditional, as Ali said, we're talking about he's probably fishing now, right? He's going fishing today. He likes to fish, and if he does catch a fish, we will eat it. Okay, a real situation. Okay, number 5.
So I have a question.
Yeah, a question?
So
A question?
we don't have a clear key for these conditions, I think, in my opinion. So do you think there is a clear key to distinguish between conditions? For instance, about number 4 about Simon. So you use the second condition, and the second condition, it is unreal and impossible. So
I used the first conditional, but you could use the second conditional, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, if Simon, the fisherman, catches a fish today, we will eat it, right? Now imagine we have, and this goes back to knowing the context. Okay, hi Ava. If Simon, the clown, right? Maybe we would use a different
Okay.
caught a fish today. We would eat it.
Okay.
Okay. Right? Okay. Good. Okay. So, I think yeah, as you're saying, like there is a certain level, a certain degree of subjectivity, right? But in general, if you know the context, right? If you know the context, you can answer with the appropriate conditional. Okay?
Okay.
And I want to save time for the third conditional. So are there any other questions about this? I think I'll just tell you the answers to these, right? So you have them. If you went to the moon, you would be 400,000 kilometers from Earth. She would buy a Porsche if she won the lottery, right? And did you do number 7? You did, right? If you put salt in hot water, it will dissolve. Okay?
Yeah.
Any questions about those?
About number 5, maybe it is more suitable to use the third conditional because it is hypothetical situation, unreal.
It is, but we can remember conditionals are both talking about hypothetical or imaginary situations with one key difference. Does anyone remember? Yeah? Yeah, so good. So here we're using the second conditional because it's the future. Or sorry, the present or future, right? If we were talking about the past, like if the sentence had started last year or yesterday, then we would know we were talking about the past, and we could use the third conditional.
In this case, as a general phrase statement, we need to use the second conditional.
Yes. Okay. All right. So,
okay, thank you.
Good. Okay. So now I want to practice the third conditional. Yeah.
Number 8 is clear, I think. This kind of sentences. If it rained in the Sahara Desert, it's unlikely. It's obvious, I think. Yeah.
Of course. Yes.
Everyone would be very surprised.
Good. Yeah. And then what if I added yesterday?
Second.
Third.
And how would I form that?
If it had rained in the Sahara Desert, everyone would have been very surprised.
Excellent. So, oops. So does everyone see the change that just happened? Right? Now we're talking about yesterday. And we would say yesterday, if it had rained in the Sahara Desert, everyone would have been very surprised. So here we're talking about the past. It did not rain in the Sahara Desert yesterday, so everyone was not surprised. But we're talking about an alternate past. Okay, any questions about this?
No.
Okay, so so to practice a little bit more with the third conditional, what I want you to do is think of, I want to hear some examples of events that changed history. Okay, and so just for instance, man landed on the moon. Right? That's my example of an event that changed history. Can anyone else think of some events that changed history? Don't worry about the conditionals for now.
The Second World War.
Okay, the Second World War happened, right? Okay. Any others?
Man invented electricity.
Okay, good. I'm going to say electricity was invented.
The human arrived to the moon.
Okay, so man landed on the moon. Good. Any others?
Internet was invented.
Good. The internet was invented.
And the fire.
Yeah. Man discovered fire. Okay, so good. We can start with these. Okay, so these are all very clearly events that changed history completely, right? History would not be the same without these events. So, using the third conditional, I want you to tell me how the world would have been different if these events hadn't happened. So let's start with electricity. With this, actually we'll start from the beginning. So man landed on the moon. So I want you to tell me, how would the world have been different if man had never landed on the moon? Using the third conditional, I want you to imagine how the world would be different today.
Okay, can I try?
Mm-hmm.
If man hadn't landed on the moon, we wouldn't have known anything about the moon.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay, so this is the third conditional. So again, if man hadn't landed on the moon, we wouldn't have known anything about the moon, right? Okay, a great sentence. Notice that Ellie used in the if clause the past perfect, right? It's negative, hadn't landed. And in the main clause, would plus have plus the participle. Okay?
Okay, I have one.
Good.
If electricity hadn't discovered, we would lived in dark.
Okay, good. Almost perfect. We would... Okay. If electricity hadn't been discovered, we would have lived in the dark. Right?
Okay, yes.
So in the if clause, again, we're using the past perfect. And here, it's tricky because it's passive as well, right? So we can't just say if electricity hadn't discovered. We have to say if it hadn't been discovered because it's in the passive voice.
Okay.
So it's like an extra step of difficulty, basically. Okay?
Right.
Good. All right, any others? You can use one of the same topics or a different topic.
If internet hadn't invented, we wouldn't have studied English online.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. So if the internet, well, missing one word, been, right? It's
Been invented.
passive
Okay.
again. Mhm, perfect. So really, really good. If the internet hadn't been invented, we wouldn't have studied English online. Great. Okay. Let's see if we can hear at least one more use of the third conditional.
Okay. If man hadn't been discovered fire.
This one is active, so, right? For a passive voice, it would be fire was discovered.
If man hadn't discovered fire,
Good.
we wouldn't have cooked the meal.
Perfect. Okay, so if man hadn't discovered fire, we wouldn't have cooked our meals, right? And so again, this one, the difference here is now we have an active verb again. Okay? All right. So really, really good work with that. I know this was kind of a lot, and we're unfortunately running out of time. But do any of you have any questions about anything we've gone over today?
No, thank you.
No, no.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good. Okay. Well, I hope that was helpful. And thank you all for participating and for being patient. And I hope to see all of you again soon in class. Okay? Have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Bye, Kate.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Thank you, Kate.